There is no one size fits all for site performance. Faster is just simply better, as long as you can be stable, and faster means more to certain user bases than others. And it's all in the context of what matters most, which is your user experience. Hello, and welcome to the Frictionless Experience. I'm your host, Nick Palladino. And joining me today is the guest.
But we haven't been doing that,
Chuck
right?
Moxley. Chuck, tell us more. So, Chuck, I have a fun one for you.
Okay.
So, my wife constantly using YouTube TV for our 14-month-old.
Okay.
And she's usually using something like Nickelodeon, PBS, something along those lines. I was always a Cartoon Network kid growing up. So I ended up saying, hey, you should use Cartoon Network sometime. So Cartoon Network started to get used. Scooby-Doo, and a lot of those other Looney Tunes is now on Cartoon Network. And so my wife ended up using YouTube TV regularly for Cartoon Network. One day, and she started to complain. She said, oh yeah, sometimes I'll start playing it in the morning. And it plays some other time of the day. It's not live. And I said, well, that's strange. Why is it not playing live? And one day it starts playing the Adult Swim, which is very adult. Like there's this like maimed video of like this, I don't know, but there's just bodily blood everywhere. Just gushing.
Adult Swim for your 1-year-old.
Yeah, not something we want on there. And she was like, yeah, and for me to catch up and get back to what the actual program is, you have to keep hitting the next button. So you keep hitting the next show. There was no live.
You have to like fast forward through all the shows it was still playing?
And every time it takes time to load. So it's like...
Didn't have like a live TV button? Or?
I was surprised.
Wow. That's kind of crazy.
It is. You talk about a friction-full experience. Not only that, but you're waiting all this time each time you hit the next.
And whatever's playing, Nico's getting exposed to.
Well, it was really just that initial shock value. Nico's over here like, more. I was like, whoa, hold on.
Oh boy, he's going to like Adult Swim. He's not going to want the Cartoon Network during the day. I have to admit, YouTube TV I had for a while, and I had trouble with the controls on my iPad.
That sounds similar.
Yeah, and my trouble was the fast, like to go forward 15 seconds was right next to the skip to the next show button. And I was constantly trying to go 15 seconds ahead. Instead, I go to the next show or change channels and stuff. And I got so annoying that I ended up changing to Fubo.
Fubo, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, Fubo. We have that now. We get it through our Roku at home, and it works just like cable TV.
Roku, Fubo, all these words.
And other made-up terms in streaming content. All right, well, speaking of made-up terms or made-up concepts, let's talk about site speed. How fast does your website need to be? Because there's a lot of myths about this, right? And a lot of confusion. And probably a big reason for that is the Medium article from 2016. So you can look it up on Medium. It's got 300 likes on it. It's a Medium article from 2016 that had all these stats. Stats like 1 second of load lag time would cost Amazon $1.6 billion in sales. Or Walmart, when load times jump from 1 second to 4 seconds, conversions decline sharply. For every 1 second of improvement, they get a 2% conversion increase. Or an extra half seconds in search page generation would cause traffic to drop, according to Google. Have you found, because you work with a lot of clients and you've been doing this over the years, have you found people glom onto these statistics and now believe they have to have a 1 second load time because Amazon set that standard?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's with good intent. That's the one thing I'll say about this article. It helps to bring awareness to something that is truly valuable to every brand, but it's creating a blind pursuit for performance that should not exist. If you're pursuing page performance out of the context of the customer experience, you've already lost because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're going after a blind understanding of where that value is.
So the article was good at making it a priority and getting people to think about it. It was bad in trying to say, this is the standard you must hit, your site must hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to assume that you need performance on all of your experiences equally, is fundamentally misappropriated because certain experiences on your site may need that performance for your customers more than others. So you need to be able to find out how to prioritize what experiences you have created, what pages maybe what features, whatever it may be. Do you need performance the same way in your loyalty experience, your own account login, the same way that you need it in the bottom of the funnel?
All right. So how fast does a page need to be?
That has to always be in the context of the customer experience. So if I were to try to go figure out what that answer is, I need to be able to measure that customer experience specifically. Another big element that matters, your demands of speed are different than mine.
Me as a person or me as a brand?
You as an individual.
Okay.
You as an age group.
Wow. You're going to go there?
Hey, let's call a spade a spade. Me as an age group. And I'm older than most of the target audiences nowadays. So I'm not even within the young bracket anymore.
Okay.
So when you're targeting a young bracket or a certain 18 to 35, that's one of your core markets as a marketing agency. But 18 to 24 is really the core market for many of the brands out there. So if you're targeting that group, what does page performance mean for them?
So is it purely a matter of demographics?
Oh, no, absolutely not. It's a matter of expectation to your customer type.
Okay. So give us an example. Give us an example of two different sites or two different pages on the same site that demand a different speed.
So I would say, sticking with Amazon as our example, when you're going to shop and you're going to try to go figure out what you need because you want to shop for a gift. That is somewhere where performance is probably the most important thing you could do.
And why?
Because your user is navigating and trying to figure out what they want. So they are on a user journey to try to go understand where I need to go extract it. So performance matters a lot to that user journey. However, similarly, if I know that I need a new pair of sunglasses because I just broke mine and I am really committed to my Christopher Kluse sunglasses, then I'm going to go shop specifically for them, and they're a great Danish brand.
Or are you going to go to ChristopherKluse.com?
I would, yes.
Okay. And so you're saying you have more patience at Christopher Kluse because you are committed to buying from that brand. It's not like you're going to bounce over and buy Oakley instead.
That's correct.
Okay.
So I'm so committed to that brand. I know exactly what I want to purchase. I am more likely to let that page performance get in the way, more likely to let general friction get in the way.
So to be clear, it's not that you don't want, as a Christopher Kluse, we're doing a great commercial for Christopher Kluse, as a Christopher Kluse customer, it doesn't mean you don't need a fast experience or want a fast experience. It just means you're willing to put up with more friction than you might with another brand or another type purchase.
That's correct. And that's not to say Christopher Kluse shouldn't go prioritize a lot of the customer experience, because not everyone is at that brand awareness and brand commitment that I am. So they have maybe, let's assume they have 100,000 users that hit their site in any one specific week. There might be 1,000 like me. There might be 10,000 like me, but they still need to understand how to group those segments to figure out where that matters most. Really what you need to do is you need a strategic way to understand and measure where that value is. And so that site performance, while it may matter for some at a certain percentage, it's all in the context of the user base that is coming and visiting your specific experience. And if you're not measuring it in those specific ways, you're not going to be able to answer this question.
So going back to the stats, your customer may have a different expectation than Amazon's customers,
exactly,
or Walmart's customers, or Google.
Exactly okay. Right.
So how do you measure that? How do you figure that out? And what is the optimum speed for your customers? And does it even differ by page?
And that's where the magic of the conversion curve comes in, to be able to understand and measure your specific conversion curve on your specific user journeys. Each of your user journeys are also going to be independent. So if you're not understanding that and how each of those conversion curves kind of integrate into that customer journey, you're not going to be able to understand whether or not performance is a valuable aspect for you.
Give us an example of two different journeys when you say journeys in that context.
Yeah. So one journey may be, I want to go check on my order. The other journey is I want to submit my order in the first place.
And so your expectation for page speed could be different, or not necessarily your expectation, your willingness to endure a slower page.
That's correct. And also the definition of the conversion is different. So you need to understand how to define your conversions in the first place to say this is what a successful journey is. My successful journey in that first example of checking my order is actually getting to an order status. Now, is it successful and have I provided a good experience on that? I would probably need to measure that in a very defined way to say, hey, maybe user feedback, something along those lines. But just providing that user experience that they have achieved that order status, that is in and of itself the complete journey.
And what you're saying then in a way is the likelihood of the customer to get so frustrated they will bounce and go buy somewhere else.
That's correct.
That's the risk or the cost, the potential cost.
You're losing that brand commitment. Okay. You're trying to drive more users like me that are so committed to a specific brand that they go to that experience and it doesn't matter as much.
They have more patience.
That's correct.
Or more willingness to stick with it. So I would think then another example of two different kinds of journeys are a returning customer versus a new customer.
Absolutely. And with a returning customer, you may have that committed user, or you may have a user that is already starting down their frustration journey. It's like when we were talking with Mike Shady, you're climbing up the ladder. As a user that climbs up that ladder with every experience going up one rung.
And if you fall harder from the top rung than you do from the first rung.
You don't fall one rung.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was a quote from that episode. And the other thing that we brought out in that episode was the study that was done, I think by Columbia University, where I'm not sure it's the right source, but it was either a university or some sort of consulting firm that said loyal customers are more likely to encounter problems than new customers because they come to your site more often. They have more opportunity for a problem. And a problem, when you're talking page speed, could be something on the page itself. It could be something from a server standpoint. It could be something from an internet problem. It could be they're on an old phone. I mean, there's a lot of variables, right, that go into page speed.
Yeah. And most importantly, page speed only works against us. If your customers are thinking about your page, thinking about the performance, especially of your page, wow, this is slow. No one ever said, wow, this is fast, except for maybe the speed nerds out there like me.
Right. What you're saying is you cannot exceed somebody's expectation of how quickly your page paints.
That's right.
They want it instantly. Yeah. They're willing to put up with some amount of time, but there is a limit to how much time.
Right, exactly. So if you were to go serve up a faster experience, you also have to do it reliably. If you do it with creating a stability issue where you're going to create a whole bunch of bad experiences that happen to be faster, it might be faster, but it might not provide any images at all because the image server failed in that specific user journey. That's a faster experience, but it's a terrible experience because I don't even get to see what the product is.
In which case you're less likely to buy if you can't see what the product is. We talked about that with Kenny from Wyndham, right?
That's right.
Where we were talking about they tested various speeds, and what they found was they needed higher quality imagery because if you're booking a hotel room, you want to see what do the rooms look like? What does the property look like? You want a good understanding of that. And if they sped it up with lower quality images, they actually reduce conversion. So that's a specific use case, specific audience, specific type of transaction, specific customer journey.
Exactly. It's all in the context of your users.
And the way to optimize that and to take the emotional out of it or the rhetoric or the folklore out of it is to do conversion rate curves on all of your pages on your website and understand your customers. And then you can break down the customer journeys, returning customers, new customers, what we talked about with Home Depot, contractors versus, consumers.
For sure.
Okay.
And if you're not doing that segmentation properly, then you're not going to understand your users correctly.
Okay. So if we're going to post this episode and we want one speed, there's no one speed to quote. There's not 1 second. There's no one right answer.
There is never one right answer for this question.
Okay. Interesting. Well, that's a hot take and definitely contrary to what people say about site speed, right? Unlike, for example, 2 seconds is what Gomez says.
Gomez, man, that takes me back, first of all. But obviously that's back in a time where you're trying to build benchmarks. And it's just fundamentally not the right approach. There is no one size fits all for site performance. Faster is just simply better. as long as you can be stable. And faster means more to certain user bases than others. And it's all in the context of what matters most, which is your user experience.
So what matters most to your customer?
To your customers.
In that journey.
That's right. Because certain customers are going to demand more. So if this is a matter of, the ideal state is obviously faster is better. No doubt about it.
Right. Right. We're not saying slow down your website.
Not saying slow down your website. We're just, your customer experience is going to demand certain areas need to be faster than others. And if it's a game of priorities to figure out where you go focus your attention, you need to figure out which are the most important.
And that goes to the point that site speed is simply one of 5 friction forces. So if you only focus on site speed, if you put all your eggs in that basket, you could be ignoring some of these other experience issues that could be creating problems or creating friction.
That's right.
Okay. So you have to have a balanced approach to your friction fighting. Right. Okay. Well, that's good advice. That's good advice. Any other comments about site speed? Any final conclusions?
I would say that the most important takeaway here, fast is better only when it's stable.
Okay. Gotcha. So stability is equally important.
Equally important, if not more important.
Okay. Well, there you have it. On the Frictionless Experience, thanks for joining us for this episode. Be sure to like or follow us on your favorite podcast platform so that you can get notified each time we have a new episode. And of course, give us a review on Apple if you enjoy the podcast. Let us know what you'd like us to cover. We're happy to cover anything. And you can always follow Nick and me on LinkedIn. I'm at Chuck Moxley.
And I'm at In Palladino.